everyone. My name is Sonja, and I'm coming from Bitnation Legal Holland. Today, we are having the first course session, and I would like to make it more interactive. I would like to present what is our idea of legal strategy and what we plan to do in the following period. Before all, I would like to say that in my Holland, I have been given a software engineer so that he makes a bridge between the legal world and technology, because in Bitnation this is the most relevant thing, because we want to translate complete technology work into the legal fields where we will practically operate. I will start with a little bit of motivation. Yesterday we mentioned it, what is our approach and what Bitnation wants to do. And recently I read an article about how the beginning of the Bitcoin and how it came to the market in a very peaceful and profoundly technological way. And I think that Bitnation has the same strategy. And that if we want to change something, we have to build a new model, existing one obsolete. And then after I read this, then I found out that also Bitnation is already using this as a motivation. So I added another one just for the beginning, that it will be a long way, so that everybody on this planet is, and that in all languages, in all countries of the world, people are using and are happy to use them. And we are trying in a simple way to explain. We will not bother you with all the legal core details and how our strategy will look like, but in some way can it help me to present it as simple. So I have chosen one of the services Bitnation offers, like a marriage, but you can imagine it that the same idea is behind the Bitnation wills or notary services. That at this moment we are also discussing on different levels in different jurisdictions how ready is actually community and there is a lot of discussions how actually to implement it and come from traditional models through some kind of hybrid models to completely digital world. And Bitnation is completely in the digital area. But to come from traditional to digital, I think, from my perspective as a legal practitioner and as a person who will be the one to present with an existing jurisdiction what actually digital marriage represents and how it should be shaped, the same validity and to be recognized as traditional one. It will not be easy assignment. I expect that there will be a lot of questions, especially from security. And this is where I actually to the regulations. So first of all, with a certain framework, the Bitnation has to define like how will we of digital service, and that we have to use the approach from legal perspective, going from the consequences, especially bad consequences that can arise when the service is not regulated at all, if there is no framework. And as we know, all the legal systems are full of norms that are definitely not needed in digital world, but we have to again approach it what is something completely new, that we are facing the digital identity from completely new level, that if we are providing service in which no one is participating, so there is no third party, this has to be one very important to know who is using the service. How will we define it? Open for discussion. How will we present it? And what is some kind of and the background which is needed so that this recognized. Also, it's very, like I pointed out here that that it has to be voluntary consent and that we have to have witnesses. So that means that I imagine it, like when I talked with Kenneth, this look like an operational way, so that I come in front of some kind of digital. And are we present, first of all, to people who decide to get married? Do we have to be present? Are we in some remote status? How are we proving our identity? How do we know if someone has taken someone's card? Some kind of, it's now the marriage is a smart contract, but it can be any smart contract. So what is the potential abuse of digital identity? Control this. That the perspective that, for instance, I have kind of like, okay, if we observe that there are regulations, there are no limits, there is no age limit, we are open for everyone. Daughter, who is 11 years old, he comes home and she said, hey, I got married on the blockchain. And how would you feel that your 11 is doing it? And are we going into this debate? You know, what will be the framework in which, if someone, for instance, I know examples, people left their properties and assets to dogs for their wills. You know, is Bitnation also going to operate like this? Or okay, I think he made here there is a dog, but I don't know if we will have such examples. But all this, it's to point.
But people don't do that. They do this, you know. They try to marry buildings and animals. but yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So I would like that we think about it. What would be some kind of best approach with minimal possible attitude, but to be presented when I come to any jurisdictions and when they try to challenge it and say that we have firm arguments. It's why this is the level which is enough and which will cover all the security and be nullified. And that brings me then and where to start. Since we are placed in the Europe, at least my Holland, and we are researching all the existing jurisdictions. How do they operate? What are the regulatory status? What are the possibilities of changing? And how much are they inspired to embrace it, that the new industry is bringing some kind of suggestions or guidelines to bring new levels into the existing community? I think that Switzerland and Gibraltar, maybe Estonia, in Europe are the places where we can start working and operating as Bitnation services. And why Switzerland? Not only because we are placing the token sale there, but we all know that they're the most decentralized state on the planet. And they have really embraced completely the new digital technology. And there are two positions actually where we can work. We can work in Crypto Valley of Zug, and there is also the new canton of Ticino in the municipality of Chiasso. They want to compete with Zug, and recently they raised their level of how much tax can you pay in bitcoins from 200 francs to 250, and now it will be a little fight, I think, between Zug and Chiasso. But I really like this idea, and I think when we move to Zug and when we start explaining what do we want to do with digital services, with digital notary, that we will infiltrate into the community. We will find the best people from the business sector and to try to see what are potential connections with government and to start offering service to the citizens who are present. Because unfortunately, in this transitional period and my hybrid model, which I'm imagining, I have to satisfy certain Swiss regulations. I cannot just come and say, hey, you will now change the rules because we are here, Bitnation, and we are doing it like this. Approach at the beginning that if Switzerland insists that the people who are marrying for instance, that they're Swiss residents, then we are offering this service for now as such. And if it comes to the level that it's recognized, then we can shape the model and make it borderless. Because first, we have certain borders, and all these regulations are stopping us completely, but we can still offer service independently, but initiate cases which will level that they're challenged, and through this challenge to be recognized. And then we said maybe we can do example that we do the smart contract on the blockchain, and then we try to nullify it in a classical jurisdiction at the court, or using it as a proof, as evidence in any of the procedure, and in that way that we present actually the whole blockchain technology and how smart contracts are valid and to be recognized actually by itself through the court procedure, and that we collect as much as possible court every jurisdiction. So this is where I come to Eric and the ambassador network, which is definitely something that is number one, how we have to operate. We have to shape certain model, which will be shared with every Bitnation embassy, and everyone who wants to be ambassadors, I think, should come to hear what we want to say and how we want to do it. And for instance, when we have positive outcome in any of jurisdiction, to try to implement the similar case in another one, and that we like spread and copy where we can to get as much as possible worldwide. Because we have people, you have really big network in your database, and I think that we should now start working that these embassies become more solid, more connected, and that we have true database of, we know who is operating where for real, who has what kind of legal help and legal background, and what kind of case that I can control at any moment to see. So we have, I don't know, in South America, these processes, or in Irkutsk, in any country in the world. So that, because we definitely can connect in this digital world. I forgot to mention why Gibraltar, because I wandered away a little bit. But this is the second country which actually now, because of the Brexit situation, is becoming more interesting to whole entrepreneur world. And they said that since the announcement of Brexit, their business activities in just establishing company has risen for 300%. And they are really, this Isolas, the big law firm, is trying to do all the possible guidelines with the government, which is very small. They only have 30,000 citizens, to create some big competitor to Switzerland, definitely. They're very open and very accessible. So I definitely see the Bitnation embassy there, community operating, especially to connect the law practitioners and to present our ideas, kind of harbor where people from all over the world are coming. We can have our services there. And if it will be spread for Gibraltar, that people have done their businesses from Bitnation, it will also go everywhere. So for Europe, from my perspective, 2 good points. Also Estonia, which with Bitnation already has certain agreements for digital notary. I would like that we completely raise the cooperation to the level that everybody knows about that, and that the software solution, how it will look like on a document, is somehow unified, that it's recognizable everywhere. So if we manage to do it in Estonia completely, then that means that it will be valid in EU. And maybe this is one of the milestones that should be very soon, before the European Parliament starts interfering with a whole bunch of directives. And I know that, especially in digital notarization, the whole notary chambers of the world are definitely against it, because they're losing their positions, which is given by their governments, because they're obligatory, so that they say that our documents are valid. So before it becomes that the notaries are entering this digital era completely, we can be also some kind of competitor. to them, because it will not avoid it. The technology is also coming to these sectors, and they will have to embrace it. So maybe Bitnation can induce this and become number one. Yes, and one of the biggest topics is actually our pet token and the arbitration procedure. What is, first of all, that we must know that we are completely talking in the concept of civil law. So arbitration procedures, it's at this moment society functions and jurisdictions, how they treat the criminal law. We cannot put it in online debates. Here's we will see what kind of crowd jury will exist and cases. So Bitnation built a decentralized system which will be very efficient, much more simple, and it will solve disputes between people in the lightest possible way, without additional expenses, without spending years, spending fees on lawyers and advisors, and actually solving the problems. How we imagine this and how to shape it, it's a very important assignment to translate the classical arbitration process into the digital environment. Because we all can imagine that one arbitration process has a lot of different stages and a lot of different people which are infiltrating inside before the final decision is made. So we have to see how will we actually build inside of the app that is most simple for every user. So for instance, I'm trying to think always for certain examples, not to go from the abstract level, but to try to imagine, like, for instance, you're just walking on the street and you enter your car and another car hits you, and you two can arrange. You don't need to have additional processes if you two can somehow make dispute and escrow, and you will fix my car for this and money will be transferred, and we are not going to court, we are not calling the police, we are some simple solution. One of the things that we will do some kind of generator to make it simple for people actually to make some certain agreements for any business activity they are doing. We have to think smart, and I have to have some kind of prediction ability to see what can become a problem. And this is how you are actually building the contract, to avoid as much as possible disputes. And if you're thinking about disputes, also to generate some kind of dispute resolution smart contract inside of the smart contract, so that everything is predicted how to solve it for certain situation. And we have to offer actually, so if person like we are trying to build for some kind of chat, and that in later stage that AI will somehow evaluate and direct you to offer you completely what do you want to do and how you describe your situation, offers you what actually kind of contract you want to make. And I'm imagining this very simple. I know we are talking in future phases of some emoticons, but it will not be very easy to come to this level. But this is why this generator has to be simple, that somehow I want to do this, and that you just press a few buttons and explain it in a simple way, and that you have your contract generated, that you have escrow, that you have potentially, I think also that maybe at the beginning of the contract, if you're talking about any disputes, that we define the arbitrators, because later when the problems arise, then people are already upset to this level. Just choosing arbitrators will become additional dispute. When we are doing that, we say, okay, in case of any problems, we are now appointing this person from the arbitrator database, persons or however. We will make a choice, depends on the severeness of the contract and the serious business activity, so that then everything is more simple. this arbitration process, I would like actually also that we can be somehow recognized within the existing arbitration network and all the conventions that exist and that are implemented in more than 150 countries around the world have certain standards. And I think that Bitnation can also make standardization that will fit and be recognized, and hopefully one day even win a reward, that a lot of disputes has been removed from the court systems to make it more easier, because we know that all the courts are piled up with cases which are practically just making the real things, then they cannot focus on this because they have to do a lot of small things. And then I see what are the next steps, what we have to do after successful token sale. That with Eric, we start working to establish, to see in what condition actually the database is, and to try to operate, to see what kind of communication people have in their networks, in their jurisdictions, to make of people, and to bring some kind of real ambassador program plan. How will we operate, and how to upgrade someone? Maybe or in Gibraltar, one here in Amsterdam, or Eric in Barcelona or Berlin, that people that we organize, that people are coming, that they see how we operate, and that they can, it can be helpful for them, and they will learn a lot, and they will be they will embrace it more easily, because it's not easy only that we put some papers and online, okay, let's see what we will do. Work.
So we need ambassadors conference.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Devcon'.
Yes, and yes, and the people who are seriously interested, as Bitnation is already operating for a few years on a voluntary base, I'm sure that it's easy to conclude that it's not easy when you have volunteered that you don't know if it's available, providing service in a way, and you want to know what is the progress, what is the outcome, what is a certain plan. It's not that we're talking from a corporate perspective. It's just that we want to know the value, and that we can follow, and that we know how to push forward in every way. So I think we will create some platform, and that we have real people, that these people connect, like, because we don't need 25 ambassadors in each country. We need, we know we have to define the profiles of the people for certain needs at certain time, and certain milestone into the project. It depends on what we are doing, and how it will look like. And from here, from base, you will have to travel to different embassies to present some event, and that people from community are coming, that we are the one who are coming and saying how we are operating, how the things look like for Bitnation in Amsterdam or in Switzerland or anywhere else. And we have to encourage people to join, so they feel that they're really contributing to create a better world for all of us.
So Devcon'1 in Gibraltar.
No, Devcon'1 in Moscow.
Oh yes, in Moscow.
Yeah, in January.
All the travels should be used for the purpose of networking. And,
yeah.
And then I see that somehow some best case scenario, at least for Switzerland, I see that if we maybe spend 1 year there, and that we connect with all the stakeholders that are important, that can be the one who can evaluate the Bitnation as a service, and to recognize the advantages and benefits. In 2019, we can already have certain recognition. I would like that. What?
Have we got an ambassador in Switzerland?
Yes, yes, me and Kenneth.
Yes, you two, yeah.
Yeah. We will switch between Gibraltar. It depends on the weather.
Yeah. summer ambassadors residents, especially in the winter residents.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm Kenneth, Bitnation's legal Holland. We just heard Sonja talk about the overall strategy. I'm going to talk more about how we're going to do this in real life, on ground, what kind of nasty legal tricks we're going to use, what kind of daily work are we doing. First of all, to support some of the strategies later on, I will present this. This is like a general method called the legal method. And how is it a judge in a court? How is he supposed to evaluate the case? And this is his method. First, you have to read the word of the law. If that makes sense, and that fits the case, he can make a judgment. If the wording in the law doesn't really comply with the case, you have to search for former cases, also what's called precedents. Have judges in the past had the same kind of case with the same facts presented? And in many countries with common law, you have to follow precedents. If the same facts in one case are the same in the next, judge the same way. Then, if there is no former cases about it, they look for industry tradition. That this case concerns, do they have some kind of or traditions they follow when this conflict arises? Not so important, but there can be ministerial law reports and university research articles if they don't find any solution on the 3 points. Then you go more theoretically about it. It's important to know. So our framework and how do we go forward? We design it, and Sonja is of course very important in this. Then we test it and we maintain it. Very simple. And the real world testings, as Sonja also touched, is we can have very simple agreements. We can have marriages, ID systems, simple sales contract maybe. Low level stuff of contracting and doing agreements. Is what we're trying to do first step. Is everything okay, Jeffy?
Using the camera.
Wow.
Suzanne, you're in the
No
camera.
problem. You can be on the camera.
You can, it's not a problem.
So when we have disputes, the outcomes. It could be raised and solved. It could be raised and presenting ethical or unusual dilemmas. It could be arbitrated and the process ends, but one of the parties don't want to comply. What do? We have the process. They already agreed, both parties, that they this process if there is a conflict. But then whatever action have to be taken by the, let's say, the losing part is not taken. He refused to recognize the arbitration process. What can we do? I don't know if it's because it's a difficult question. It's not like a simple answer. There could be many ways of handling it. Here's some known way of societies to handle disputes. Knives, pans, needles. There's also a court. There's many ways of doing it. What is the consequence of not complying with the arbitration process? What happens? This is already agreed. What bad reputation, right? Is there anything else?
There can be financial penalties if that's.
If it's enforceable by the smart contract system, yes. If that can enforce it automatically, yeah. But we're talking about a part who's not complying now. But
yeah, but if they put in deposits, that can be lost. It can be right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is.
And that's how it's done. Yes.
That's one possibility.
Yeah. So if it's challenged, and it's an important part of the legal strategy. That was why we started with the legal method. We have to sneak in precedents. We have to start court cases. And as I say, important, let it always be about content of the contract rather than the validity of the agreement. If we go in and we start engaging in discussions about where the Bitnation system is valid and legal, then we're going to lose. We have to go in and focus on that the contracting system is purely valid. We will only focus on the dispute in the courts, and making sure that we keep it that way. Because if we go through court proceedings, and it doesn't matter if we win or not, it's a question about that our contracting system is not disputed. So we have to try and make cases where that won't happen. Some low-level stuff could be me and Sonja, for instance, willing to get married, a blockchain marriage. We talked about a practical case where we're in Switzerland and claim the tax deduction that exists based on the fact that you're married. Then you get a tax deduction. Would they accept our smart contract marriage and tax deduction based on it? If yes, wow, it's a little recognition. And we have to sneak in these small recognition in all small kind of cases. What we will do is Bitnation will support whoever goes into these cases. I personally will, take it. And if people wants to go in court and challenge systems, you have the full support of me and Sonja. We will support you. Then we will have real-life testing. That is what we're actually doing, and this is actually what I said. We can build procedures by having this method. There's two things. We want to save whatever work we do and persist it, as it's called, and we want to save it to the database and relay the result to the community and to everyone to use it. So when something happens, important legal point is made, it's important that this is spread out, especially through the diplomatic network, Eric, that when we have other questions that regards a certain country, or we have a result from another country, it should be spread out to the ambassadors, so they know about it and so they can assist. We will do that by building a data model for law. It's about dissecting the way all laws are built and objectified. By doing this, we can build a database with a data structure that is both informational, so if we need information, we can make a query to the database, but also important to make it comply with the artificial intelligence data structure that will come later on. I discussed it with Kent, and it's a way of serving an AI structured information about law and law results, or case results. That's what machine learning is about. It's what was the foundation, what was the basic test, and what was the outcome of a human processing. That's what we're doing. We're making the law database and the result database. For one purpose is serving the diplomatic network, and second thing is to support the future development of AI. Legal results that we get can be inputted to this database, and if another law system, that's one country where we have results from, it can be used in that country. If you have the same case in another country, and we have the same case in a similar country with a similar law, we should win the case. And in this database, we will have these planned cases, as we talked about. We will collect case history and also research other micronations. We're talking about having a database about, I think there's about 82 micronations kind of known at the moment. Go through all their problems and see if they have any legal results also, and build that into the database also. Simply, our work will, to make it simple, be improving this database on a daily basis, because it's our result and it's the legal law collection of all countries. It's everything. So our daily work will be about building this database and research countries and what kind of law they have. For now, we've been looking for countries that nation well, which is of course most important when we are starting. I think I went over this a lot. But it's important that we get a good cooperation here about transferring legal results to you. I don't know how we're going to manage this practically, but maybe you can be the connection between the Legal Holland and Ambassador Network. But we'll agree something how we do it. The result relay. Yeah, we're talking about here also that we could, as soon as the diplomatic network is substantial, we could arrange teaching sessions or discussion sessions where the people are interested join discussions, and we found common grounds. Yeah, just to take it point by point, we'll arrange these lessons for the diplomatic future contracts to avoid known pitfalls. Of course, it's all a result of the database. And diplomats should assist in local law research. This is also important, that if you have an ambassador in South Africa, that if we have an issue, that we can use him, ask him the questions. Can you research local law? How is it? And especially in countries where language would be a problem. Sonja cannot research Chinese. Impossible.
Hey, run.
Well, okay. Yeah, I never tried that before, so that will be fine.
You'll use.
So that was it from us. I only have one message left. Freedom for all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So I don't understand too well adversarial systems. So you're talking about precedent-based systems. I don't know. Is that everywhere or just in civil?
No.
Sorry, can I ask you to just repeat the question so we get it on the audio?
Oh yes. Okay. So your question is the precedence a principle? Is that something that is common?
Yeah, and applicable in adversarial systems.
This is the problem about Bitnation's project, from country to country, and how to make a model that kind of fits all. But precedence is something that goes in most civilized countries, because it would be so unfair that the same facts for one person different result for another person. Would feel unsafe in that jurisdiction because you simply couldn't trust facts and what the outcome. I mean, how can you trust that you're doing something legally or illegally now? You cannot be safe that the same facts will create the same result.
And in America, it's just statute, right? It's, and precedent can be reinterpreted differently.
It's a huge debate what U.S. law, how that works, and that's because we will never agree on anything anyway on American law.
I have a question regarding, let's say, the more ontological way. I think I have a conflict with a friend, like a day something or something or whatever, like voluntary way of going about. If I have a conflict with somebody, I don't know to know that the law is there, and that if this person has done something wrong, I mean, we have the police will come to your house and put you in prison, right? So where is the, let's say, the nation proposal to resolve conflicts? It's kind of to agree.
We couldn't solve this problem for you unless you had in the system. I understand it. You have an oral agreement.
Well, let's say like the cars, like your cars case.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not based on an agreement. That's an accident.
Exactly.
That's one thing. You're talking about having an agreement with a friend, and now one of you don't live up to the agreement. Then what? Well, if you don't have anything written, you didn't have a smart contract about the agreement, solve it, or you can pull him into a court. I guess this is not the service of Bitnation.
Okay. Yeah.
The service be to make the contract and then offer an arbitration system for that contract. Yeah, if you come in with the dispute with no contract,
there's no way
how can we arbitrate?
Yeah. Okay. No, it's very clear where.
And good question. Yeah.
Could I ask maybe a higher level question?
Excuse me.
The way that Bitnation is viewing the legal strategy, that is like, is the long-term goal to ultimately not require recognition from jurisdictions, like a strategy to get adoption and acceptance, need acceptance, or is it that it will offer these existing institution and somebody and
Well, the system.
Sorry, Sonja, can I ask you to do it on camera?
Yes, please.
For the people watching at home.
Yeah. I think regulations exist and will always exist in all the jurisdictions, whether we want that or not. Bitnation motivation is to grow big and to be recognized, and for that to be equally valid. And it's up to people's choice what jurisdictions they will choose. And Bitnation is one of the options. And we will work hard so that this option becomes #1 option, so that people are not spending time and energy into existing jurisdictions where we all know how it looks like a traditional system, and how long it will take to traditional system to embrace technology in such way. Is pioneering in a completely new area to offer jurisdiction as a solution.
And do you think those existing jurisdictions see Bitnation as a threat, or actually like can be a welcome part of the ecosystem, and therefore does Bitnation need like a subversive strategy or quite an earnest one about trying to make
as I stated at the beginning, that I think that we should be peaceful and profoundly technological, and not to crash the walls and say.
I think the point is also actually that we shouldn't care. We're turning our backs on these established systems, and as the whole thing started with, let's just ignore it and build something that is better, and then everyone will realize that the system you're talking about is shit. Sorry, but that's what's going to happen.
Affects your strategy for adoption, right? Do you go in saying that we're just doing this as a platitude, or do you go in saying, no, we earnestly want this to be recognized?
Yes,
of course.
Yes.
So
yes,
We
it's not alternative, and we are not giving up, and we will not turn around. I don't expect the first doors that I knock on that they will embrace us. There'll be a lot of challenges on this way, and especially in different jurisdictions. We will hear a lot of different arguments that they will try to discredit us and try to, especially from the legal community, I expect that there will be a lot of questions from experienced lawyers and professors and theoretical people or who are coming from practice, because it is a new thing, and people tend to avoid things they don't know. And we are here to show them how it looks completely, because when you don't understand something, then you're kind of not embracing. And we will be persistent, and this presence that we are offering service to our people, because all the people who are inside of Bitnation, not just as ambassadors, but that we motivate them, use us as much as possible, and we will help you to build a network that will be behind you and that will offer you full support, that you feel I'm not alone. You know, I have this problem. I use Bitnation as a service. Feedback from my community, which is supporting what we don't have in our systems. You can be left alone and no one will help you. You will pay 10 lawyers and you will lose all the money, and you will have piles of papers that you don't know what to do with them.
But remember the question, will they accept it in the legal community? The problem is that the best case scenario of Bitnation is that we actually take all the jobs from the lawyers. Now, this is already a personal mission for Sonja to get rid of the need for lawyers.
Yeah.
So, of course, the legal community will resist this to an extent I can't even imagine. Because they're going to say, this is all fake, it doesn't work. How stupid are you? See, this is how it works. It has to be this big to function. But we don't care. We turn our back on it and we make this and we make that function better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Maybe I can just add something briefly, that we did quite a bit of research into the online legal industry and the legal industry as a whole. And the legal industry is very much ripe for disruption. It is archaic, it is antique.
Yeah.
The way it is so expensive. I mean, it overcharges, very little accountability for what work is being done. And that has and also the level of regulation that has been put in place in the last 50 years or so means that solemn agreements is very difficult for at least one of the parties. And so what you've had is a sort of flight from the law. People are not making solemn agreements anymore, or in certain jurisdictions, in many jurisdictions, people avoid. It's financially impossible for them to engage with the law. It's simply too expensive for them to do so. At a purely practical level, the legal industry is itself ripe for disruption. And there are some minor attempts going on. I mean, there's a lot of online legal services being offered, and they are becoming more and more successful. But so at one level, we want to expand people's the possibility of people making solemn agreements to a whole untapped constituency, who you know, if you're selling oranges on the street in Nairobi, you can't make a legal agreement with the person who owns the piece of land you put your orange stand on, because it would simply be too expensive, and you would almost certainly lose if there was any dispute anyway. Have more people have access to solemn binding agreements, not just replace the system that's there. Secondly, if we're going to succeed, there's only one way to do that, and that is to offer a better service than is already offered. We're convinced that the service offered by nation states, because there's no choice, based on sovereignty being pooled in one place, does not provide a good service for citizens. So the only way our system is going to succeed is if it can outcompete what's already there. Outcompete that if it's not shut down. Right. So email outcompeted the postal industry. But if the postal industry had ganged up and shut down email in 1994 or 1995 when it emerged, then it would not, that opportunity for email to outcompete the postal service would not have been there. So we have to engage with jurisdictions in order to make sure that people have a choice, have the choice to use our service or the services that are offered by nations, by other voluntary nations. So in that case, it is a very firm and it is a very serious engagement, but it is an engagement to make sure that people have the choice to use our services.
Thank you very much for that. What can I speak to you? I think the system is working pretty well actually for people who can't pay the legal fees. And they have a very, very clear incentive to keep the monopoly of jurisdiction within nation states.
Yes.
So that, I mean, how would you deal with that?
So the question is that there is a strong disincentive to allow an alternative.
Well, yeah, exactly, especially with people with power and money.
So what's happened is there are many, many people, I mean, even in the West, I mean, I know in the UK about 30% of the economy is not legal. People are making agreements by word of mouth, they're using cash to exchange, they're doing the gig economy and so on and so forth. People are avoiding signing solemn agreements because it's too onerous on one side or the other. So there's already a constituency out there who are hacking the system, if you like, getting around it. And we want to give them something legitimate to use, something which doesn't involve them hacking the system, which is a system built for them, built for the reasons why they're having to hack the system.
Yeah,
so
it's very easy to frame that as a legitimate activity. Like,
well, it is. Well, first of all, the system. Part of the reason the system we're building is difficult to take down because it's decentralized. So it's very difficult not to prevent people from using it. Just like it's difficult to prevent people from using Bitcoin, for example. So we want to build something that is difficult because it's built in a different domain. It's kind of in a different dimension from the dimension in which legislation takes place. So it's difficult to be taken down. Secondly, through this process of building precedent, process of stealth, if you like, we want to create the context in which those agreements see as legitimate. And we also have to remember that all industries are made up of people. So people, the Postal Service probably also wanted to use email. So in a sense, people in the legal profession will undoubtedly evolve and adapt and see this new system and find it. So we don't see that it's, in the end, there is only people that we've created, but they don't really exist. They only exist insofar as we want them to exist. And if we don't want them to exist, they will disappear and new ideas will emerge, and that's what we're a new way to see.
Give my go. Yeah, last question. So far, so we're talking only about civil law, right? And I think that as a user, just a normal person, it's great that they have like efficient access to transparent and good quality legal services. But then to do this on our platform, that's with the powered by the Ethereum blockchain to begin with, you're going to need enough collateral in assets, like you'll need enough assets, digital assets, such that the cost of myself and me are not compliant with the result of some arbitration is greater than the cost of me losing my assets that are already digital on the blockchain. So for this to be enforceable, level of situation where generally people have a lot of digital assets.
It's important to get all these assets defined. What can we use as assets? To have a kind of punishment built in to not comply.
Yeah, right.
For instance, I think that's the solution.
Because the personal cost to me is I'm just going to walk away from it. Yeah. Right. The cost of that has to be greater than the cost of me saying comply.
So it's about defining some assets that we can actually use as punishment for not complying.
So I think there are two elements. One, when you build a contract, you will have the opportunity to build into that contract. Someone pays a deposit, agreement, so you can tailor that into the contract. Because there will be a market for contracts, and contracts themselves will get additional points. People will be able to pick the ones that are seen to be working best for them, delivering the outcomes that they're designed for. So there'll be a kind of evolution within the system. Secondly, I think, so in a sense, you can build those in on a peer-to-peer basis rather than having it